Hey guys, welcome to The Strong Young Man. With social media pushing the limits of physical perfection, many people are chasing their ideal physique and almost all of them will fall short of their expectations. So many individuals are on a quest for perfection to emulate their fitness idols. These fitness icons are generally posting the best shot out of 200, airbrushing it and applying filters until the image is a far cry from what it was the moment it was taken. The reason these images are perfect is because they cannot be replicated naturally. The image is not of this world. Even without modifying the image, it is always going to be shot from the perspective that best favours the individual. It is likely to be taken after a training session, with the muscles still full of blood, in perfect lighting, and from the right angle. This kind of shot is unattainable beyond the instant it is taken. It is just not possible to be in such a flattering state beyond that moment. It's also very likely that the person you are idolising is using performance-enhancing drugs to achieve their physique. I have nothing against people who use performance-enhancing drugs. I've used them myself, along with half the Olympians and many other professional sporting athletes. It's the biggest kept secret in the fitness and sporting industries. What I have an issue with is when a person uses performance-enhancing drugs and then deliberately lies about taking them. I can understand why people lie about it. It's damaging to their brand, and it can cost them their sporting title, but it is still wrong. It sends the message to others, especially young men, that if you work hard, you can attain a similar physique naturally. The deception around the prevalent use of performance-enhancing drugs needs to be brought to light so that everyone can have a realistic expectation about what is attainable naturally. Today's episode is going to explain why I don't recommend you use performance-enhancing drugs, in particular anabolic androgenic steroids, to reach goals you would never be able to attain naturally. I'll run through the risks versus rewards so you are informed of the decision if you decide to proceed down this path. I'm also going to go over my experience using these drugs and how you can use steroids while minimising the short-term and long-term side effects. Please watch until the end if this is something you are considering. Every piece of information needs to be considered before making your decision. Before I start, there are certain people who are strongly discouraged from taking steroids. Number 1, women. I'm not going to spend too much time on this because this channel is dedicated to men. Steroids will make women turn into men in a time and dose dependent manner. Number 2, men under 25. Testosterone levels are much higher in your early 20s, so why do you think you need to use steroids when you have the fountain of youth flowing through your veins? Steroids are not necessary for anyone under 25 unless they have a pre-existing health condition or are looking to pursue a professional bodybuilding or sporting career. Before 25, you really don't have the full plan for your life mapped out. Understand that steroid use alters your brain chemistry permanently. This can result in you having a permanent change to your personality. This is especially the case if you take them prior to the brain finishing its final rapid maturation phase, which is around 30. Before 30, your brain is not fully developed, and no man is in the right frame of mind to make choices that will impact him for the rest of his life. If this isn't enough to bother you, then understand that estrogen, or more specifically estradiol, is responsible for epiphyseal growth plate closure. In actual fact, it's the estradiol peak that signals to the body to close the growth plates. Males synthesize their estradiol from their own testosterone by using the enzyme aromatase. Introducing testosterone from an exogenous source and then cycling off testosterone will bring forward this hormonal peak if it hasn't happened already. This will permanently close your growth plates prematurely. You can build muscle mass at any time, but your frame can only grow taller during periods where your growth plates are active. By 22, the last of your growth plates should be closed and steroids will not stunt your growth. Number 3, men who have not trained 5 times per week for at least 5 years. Using steroids only works if you do, but how do you know how to work? What works best for you? What food do you operate best on? This will be different for every person based on genetic factors determined by your ancestry. Assuming you are bodybuilding, what exercises do you respond best to? Bone structure and limb length will make this an individual determination. What workout split works best within your goals and your lifestyle? Again, this will be different for everyone. Do you have the proper form on every exercise you do? Have you figured out the range of motion that suits your bone structure? The answers to all of these vary with each individual, and they take thousands of training sessions of trial and error to determine. You need a minimum of 5 years to fine-tune all of these factors before you go overloading your body with excessive weight to build muscle. You also shouldn't be taking steroids until you've paid your dues and are approaching the genetic ceiling of muscle growth. Why would you want to take the risk earlier for something that is going to come naturally with a little more time? Steroids should only be used to enable you to push past what is attainable naturally, not to get you to your genetic limit sooner. Number 4, men who refuse to get blood work. Blood work is essential to understanding what is going on in your body. Better the devil you know. If you're not getting frequent blood work, then you are operating completely blind. You will not be able to get the best out of your steroid use. You also don't get the warning signs of health problems that might be on the horizon as a result of abuse. If you inject yourself with needles, then what's the big deal about getting blood drawn? I get regular blood work drawn at Australian clinical labs for about 140 Australian dollars to keep an eye on all my health markers, even though I don't take steroids anymore. I recommend this for everyone, even healthy people, especially if you're going to be taking steroids. If you can afford a steroid cycle that costs thousands of dollars, then you can afford a couple of $100 worth of blood work. With that out of the way, I want to go through some of the possible negative side effects that must be risked if you want to proceed down this path. Number 1, hair loss. Using steroids will almost certainly accelerate androgenic alopecia or male pattern baldness for those who are prone to it. Male pattern baldness will still progress even if you're engaging in hair loss prevention measures such as those discussed in episode 86. The testosterone in your body is converted to dihydrotestosterone or DHT via the 5-alpha reductase enzymes, and DHT is the hormone primarily responsible for diffuse thinning of the hair follicles on the scalp. Hair loss prevention medicines such as finasteride and dutasteride don't eliminate DHT completely, but they do drastically reduce it. This means that any time you incorporate more anabolic or androgenic compounds into your body, more hair loss will follow. Some compounds are more hair safe than others, but every compound will accelerate hair loss, at least to a minor degree. I certainly noticed an acceleration of my hair loss even when I was using hair-safe compounds such as oxandrolone. While the so-called hair-safe compounds may not accelerate your hair loss directly, their metabolites, downstream effects, or satellite interaction may play a role in your hair loss. For example, oxandrolone is terrible for the liver, meaning the sex hormone binding globulin you produce naturally will decrease. Stacking this with a testosterone base will free up more testosterone to convert to DHT. This will allow more DHT to freely bind to the androgen receptor in the scalp, accelerating your hair loss. You can reduce the levels of DHT in the blood created from testosterone by splitting up your doses and injecting more frequently. This controls the DHT by ensuring stable blood serum concentrations are maintained, as well as keeping sex hormone binding globulin higher to bind the DHT up. Additionally, you can experiment with injecting subcutaneously instead of intramuscular for more stable blood serum concentrations. Number 2, gynecomastia. Gynecomastia is male breast tissue most commonly formed by having high levels of estrogen in the body. This is the same thing we see with women during their menstrual cycle. More estrogen is made early in the cycle and it peaks just before the mid-cycle, which causes the breast ducts to grow slightly in size. Women synthesize most of their estrogen from pregnenolone from cholesterol in their ovaries, with the remainder synthesized by their adrenal glands and fat cells. 80% of estrogen in men is formed through the aromatization of testosterone in the brain, skin, bone, and fat cells via the aromatase enzyme, and approximately 20% of estrogen is formed directly in the testes. Only testosterone and testosterone derivatives are substrates for the aromatase enzyme, and some DHT-derived steroids can actually inhibit the effects of estrogen in the body. These steroids enter the aromatase enzyme and reduce estrogen-induced RNA transcription at the receptor site. 19-nortestosterone, also known as nandrolone, can also promote the conversion of testosterone to estrogen. Another pathway that nandrolone and its derivatives can contribute to gynecomastia is through the progesterone receptor. These steroids bind to the progesterone receptor, enlarge the mammary glands, and prepare them for lactation, meaning that these drugs could make you lactate. Male breast tissue will not develop if you're keeping your estrogen and your progesterone levels within the normal range. Improper use of steroids, such as taking large, infrequent doses or using too much, can result in male breast tissue development. Similar to DHT, you can reduce the chances of breast tissue formation by reducing blood serum concentrations of estradiol and progesterone in the blood by splitting up your doses and injecting more frequently. Again, you can also experiment with injecting subcutaneously instead of intramuscular for more stable blood serum concentrations. If this doesn't work, or you need to run higher doses of steroids, estrogen can be kept in check by taking an aromatase inhibitor such as anastrozole or exmestane. Or the estrogen can be blocked selectively by using a selective estrogen receptor modulator such as raloxifene or tamoxifen, which blocks estrogen's effect on the breast tissue. Progesterone levels can be kept in check by using a dopamine receptor agonist such as cabergoline. Don't fall into the trap of thinking that less estrogen is better. It must be kept well regulated for optimal health. Estrogen is an extremely important hormone in men for cardiovascular and neurophysiological health. Estrogen is also essential for building muscle because it contributes positively to joint health, increases androgen receptor sensitivity, and muscle recovery. The higher your testosterone, the higher your estrogen should be to enable these cardio and neuroprotective effects to counteract the androgen hormones. Personally, when I experimented with testosterone, I didn't take any substance that controlled my estrogen until I started to feel the onset of the side effects of high estrogen, such as sensitive nipples and becoming more emotional. Number 3, acne. Large fluctuations in hormones will result in acne development. It's unlikely to be as bad as this, but once you get it, you may struggle to get rid of it, and the scars will last forever. Acne is caused not from high androgen levels, but by large fluctuations in hormones. This is why women who have 10% of the androgen hormones that men have can sustain acne breakouts leading up to their menstruation. Similar to managing the testosterone metabolites DHT and estradiol, you can reduce large fluctuations of these hormones by splitting up your doses and injecting more frequently, or you can experiment with injecting subcutaneously rather than intramuscular. The time you're most likely to observe acne is when you're starting or stopping your cycle of steroids. You can minimize your acne by using modest doses and avoid large fluctuations in hormones by tapering doses up and down if you're running a big cycle. A useful tool that you can use is Steroid Plotter to plot the various compounds you are running to ensure you have stable blood levels. Number 4. Stretch marks. This is something that is not often considered as a side effect of steroids because the steroids don't cause this effect directly. Stretch marks occur when the skin is stretched beyond its elastic limit into plastic deformation. It can occur for a number of reasons, such as rapid height, weight, and muscle gain, as well as taking the body through movements that stretch the skin. Personally, I have stretch marks across my back because I grew from 5 foot 1 inch tall to 6 foot 1 inch tall in under a year back in my teens in 2003. I also have tiny stretch marks around my shoulders and on my adductors from newbie gains in the gym. Steroid users are exceedingly likely to develop stretch marks due to the rapid muscle gain in synergy to the increased muscle pumps during workouts. With this combination, performing an exercise that stretches the skin beyond its elastic limit will cause permanent deformation. All it takes is one repetition of an exercise to create unsightly stretch marks, and once developed, you can't get rid of them. However, they will fade over time. Dead hang close grip chin-ups, chest flies, and sumo squats were the cause of my stretch marks when I first started working out in the gym. Even now, when I do these exercises, I'm very careful to make sure I don't go into the fully stretched position. This is the best way for you to prevent stretch marks from occurring. Different exercises may cause stretch marks for you because it will vary with your genetics, your bone structure, as well as exercise form and skin elasticity. Anytime you have a big muscle pump and you perform an exercise that stretches the skin to a large degree, you are putting yourself at risk for developing stretch marks, and taking steroids increases the chances of this happening to you. Young people are less likely to get stretch marks because their skin is more elastic. Eating healthy amounts of collagen protein, animal products, and fat-soluble vitamins such as A, E, and K will also reduce your chances of getting stretch marks. Number 5. Infertility. The body is intelligent and knows when the level of any hormone is too high. It has a negative feedback mechanism that regulates hormonal production to prevent testosterone blood serum concentrations from exceeding the healthy range. Taking steroids, even at doses lower than what you produce naturally, will force this negative feedback mechanism to be activated constantly to bring the blood levels back into the normal range. The body will stop its own hormone production until the exogenous hormone works its way out of the system. Hormones that get shut down with steroid use include luteinizing hormone and follicle-stimulating hormone. Luteinizing hormone controls the production of your own testosterone. This means that during steroid use, your body will eventually stop producing its own testosterone, which is how the body regulates blood levels. Follicle-stimulating hormone is responsible for producing sperm in men. Studies show about 75% of people taking steroids will experience complete infertility while their LH and FSH are shut down. In most cases, the infertility caused by steroid use is reversible by stopping administration and allowing your natural levels to recover. Long-term use of steroids could cause permanent infertility. If you are on testosterone replacement therapy and you don't want to stop your protocol, you can use human chorionic gonadotropin to force the body into producing its own gonadotropin-releasing hormone against the negative feedback cycle, but the response will vary with the individual. HCG will never work as well as a hypothalamus that produces gonadotropin-releasing hormone naturally. To get sperm count, motility, and morphology to be of a sufficient level to be considered fertile on testosterone replacement therapy, you might be one of the few individuals that needs to stop your doses of testosterone. After steroid use, it takes the body time to clear the exogenous hormone out of your system, and then even more time to even begin making new sperm cells. It then takes approximately 90 days for sperm cells to mature and become viable. If you were trying to donate sperm to a fertility clinic, it could take 2 to 3 full rounds of sperm cell maturation to be accepted as a sperm donor. That means it could take up to 1 year to fully restore your fertility. An alternative is to prepare ahead and get your sperm frozen before starting your first cycle. This will enable you to have children down the track if using testosterone causes permanent infertility. Note that you can still conceive children while using steroids, so don't believe that it's a reliable contraceptive solution. Refer back to episode 29 for the only 2 methods of birth control that you as a man should use. The final thing worth mentioning is that it's been observed with statistical significance that steroid users who conceive children are far more likely to have a girl over a boy. The sperm is responsible for determining the gender of the fetus. A woman's eggs are genetically coded with the female X chromosome, while roughly half of a man's sperm is coded with the female X chromosome, while the other half carry the male Y chromosome. Sperm coded with the Y chromosome are lighter, smaller, and have round heads. They move faster but die quicker. On the flip side, X chromosome sperm are heavier, larger, and have oval-shaped heads. Female sperm are slower but live longer. It's my theory that because of this, female sperm are less affected by lower levels of follicle-stimulating hormone, and that's why I think steroid users are more likely to conceive a girl. Assuming that you will experience all of these side effects, are steroids still worth the risk? Have you done everything humanly possible to maximize your natural levels of testosterone before going down this path? You can increase your natural levels of testosterone by eliminating grains and simple sugars from the diet, by ensuring you are consuming adequate saturated fat. Saturated fat increases cholesterol, which will enable you to make more hormones naturally, by ensuring you are consuming adequate zinc, which causes your body to produce more testosterone, by ensuring you are getting sufficient sunlight exposure to facilitate the production of vitamin D, which will also cause your body to produce more testosterone, by reducing your exposure to estrogenic compounds. Refer back to episode 105 for more details. By reducing the levels of stress in your life. Refer back to episode 39 for more details. By working out in the gym to increase your natural levels. High intensity exercise will show the greatest improvement to your testosterone levels as long as you don't overdo it. By strengthening your immune system. Testosterone is immunosuppressive, and the body will decrease its testosterone secretion when the immune system is compromised. Refer back to episode 64 for more details on how to make your immune system bulletproof. Lastly, by consuming substances shown to boost testosterone, such as ashwagandha, fenugreek, tribulus, boron, tonkat ali, nettle root extract, rhodiola, alpha-GPC, L-carnitine, and nicotine. If you decide to use steroids, you are traveling down a one-way street. There is no going back. Once you begin to take steroids, your body will have permanent anabolic and androgenic transcriptions to your DNA. You can no longer legitimately claim that you're a natural athlete, even when the drugs are out of your system. If all of this is okay, then proceed at your own risk. You are making a deal with the devil. So, do steroids work? Abso-fucking-lutely. As long as you put in the work, steroids will work for you. The most obvious benefit is an increase to muscle protein synthesis, which most immediately translates into increased muscle mass and glycogen retention. Steroids also increase strength, bone density, mood, libido, energy, and cognitive function. It will also accelerate recovery. The added muscle and extra energy expenditure will also mean that you burn more body fat on the same caloric intake. If you are going to take the plunge, your first steroid experience should be with testosterone only. In fact, every cycle you design should include a testosterone base, at least at a therapeutic replacement level of 75 to 150 milligrams to maintain healthy estrogen levels. Testosterone is the best steroid to start with because it's bioidentical to the hormone produced in the body. Pure testosterone has a very short half-life, which is the time it takes the body to metabolize the hormone. Because of this, esters are added to the hormone to prolong clearance time so you don't have to administer injections every hour. Testosterone enanthate with an elimination half-life of 4.5 days and testosterone cypionate with an elimination half-life of 8 days are two commonly used esters of testosterone. When you start using steroids, use an extremely conservative dose to test your tolerance. Don't be in such a rush to get big. If you plan to use steroids ongoing for a long time, then you need to think of it as a life investment. You'll be able to stay in the game longer if you use more conservative doses and spread the taxation on your organs out over a larger time frame. Certain drugs are more unhealthy for certain organs than others, and these drugs should not be taken for longer than a few weeks at a time. Most people don't need nearly as much as they think, and it's much better to underdose steroids than to overdose them. The better option might be to use testosterone replacement therapy for 6 weeks to see how you feel, especially if you have a low baseline. Testosterone replacement therapy doses are between 75 milligrams and 150 milligrams per week. This is a healthier option, and is targeted at maintaining the hormonal levels of a 21-year-old. You can stay on testosterone replacement therapy doses indefinitely. You should always split your doses into at least 2 shots per week to ensure stable blood serum concentrations. Esters of testosterone with shorter half-lives, such as testosterone propionate with a half-life of 20 hours, will need to be administered every day to avoid large fluctuations in hormones. If you aren't happy with the outcomes of this dose after 6 weeks, you can step it up for 10 more weeks. For weeks 7 to 16, inject 300 milligrams of testosterone enanthate per week intramuscularly into the ventral glute, split into 2 150 milligram shots. This will be plenty for your first experience on testosterone and will give you about 4 times the upper limit of your natural levels. If you are going to use doses of testosterone higher than the upper limit of testosterone replacement therapy doses, you will need to cycle off steroids to ensure your tolerance and sensitivity to the drug is maintained. Otherwise, you'll just need more and more testosterone for the same effect, which pushes the limits of health. For a beginner, 16 weeks is plenty of time for your first cycle. At the conclusion of your cycle, you need to give your body a break to clear the steroids out of your system, recover your sensitivity to these hormones, and to recover your natural testosterone levels. To do this, take absolutely nothing for 5 half-lives of the longest drug you are using. 5 half-lives equates to approximately 3 weeks for testosterone enanthate. Longer esters take longer to clear from your system, and this needs to be considered when you are coming off your cycle. If you were taking multiple compounds, time your last dose of each compound so that all the compounds hit their 5 elimination half-life point at the same time. Then start your post-cycle therapy. After 5 half-lives, 97% of the drugs injected will be cleared from your system, and you'll be in a position to start your post-cycle therapy at the earliest possible time to restore natural hormone production. Post-cycle therapy is almost more important than the actual cycle itself and is not to be discarded as something menial. A good post-cycle therapy will allow you to maximize the muscle you hold onto, or at least slow down the loss of the gains you acquired during your cycle. If you plan to do a second cycle, it'll be the best way to bridge the two while you give your body a break from these drugs. Another thing worth mentioning is that nandrolone and its derivatives such as trenbolone or trestolone will take significantly longer to recover from. These compounds can be very suppressive even at small blood serum concentrations. Metabolites of nandrolone decanoate have been shown to stay in your system for 12 to 16 months and reduce the degree to which your natural levels recover until the metabolites are excreted. If you use nandrolone or any of its derivatives, you may have to go onto a TRT dose for 6 months to allow you to function while the nandrolone metabolites are excreted. Only then can you start the process of waiting 5 half-lives before beginning the post-cycle therapy process. Anyway, if your first cycle was testosterone and anthate for 16 weeks, by week 20 you should begin your post-cycle therapy, which should include 1000 IU of human chorionic gonadotropin every other day in week 20, 500 IU of human chorionic gonadotropin every other day, 50 mg of clomiphene every day, and 40 mg of tamoxifen every day in week 21, 50 mg of clomiphene every day and 40 mg of tamoxifen every day in week 22, 25 mg of clomiphene every day and 20 mg of tamoxifen every day in week 23, and 25 mg of clomiphene every day and 20 mg of tamoxifen every day in week 24. During your post-cycle therapy, your testosterone levels are going to be low, and so your estrogen to testosterone ratio is going to be high. This might mean you need to take an aromatase inhibitor to bring the estrogen levels down to mirror that of your reduced testosterone levels. This will ensure your estrogen to testosterone ratio will remain healthy, which will make you feel better. Another reason to consider experimenting with aromatase inhibitors during your post-cycle therapy is that by reducing your estrogen, your body will try and bring up its natural levels of estrogen to maintain homeostasis. It does this by stimulating your body to produce more testosterone, which will then aromatase into estrogen. After your post-cycle therapy, you should have sufficient time off to allow you to recover your health. Allow your body time to recover physically, hormonally, and mentally. Your time off should be at least the duration of the steroid cycle, plus the hormonal clearance time, plus the 5-week PCT. If you did this 16-week cycle, it basically means that you shouldn't be starting another cycle until 24 weeks after your PCT finishes. I don't recommend doing more than 1 cycle per year, and you certainly shouldn't be starting another cycle until your blood work shows that your natural testosterone production has returned. If you allow your natural testosterone to return between cycles, you give yourself the best chance of coming off steroids completely in the future. Long-term use without recovery may cause your hormonal levels to never come back. It's such a cliche, but something that I started to notice in my late 20s was that my body just didn't recover as well as it did in my early 20s. In my early 20s, I used to train 6 days per week, hard and heavy every session, but in my late 20s, recovery began to take longer and longer. After the COVID-19 lockdowns, Melbourne, Australia had some of the harshest lockdowns in the world. My physique was only a shadow of its former self. After I regained my COVID losses, I decided to experiment with steroids because I wanted to unlock the next level of my character, not just physically, but professionally too. And higher testosterone would enable me to kick things up a gear, I thought. At aged 31, in early 2022, I decided to take my first shot, although I'd planned and researched it for 2 to 3 years prior. Something that I learned from my experiments with these drugs is that they never work as well as you think they will. I certainly noticed an increase in my work ethic and determination during the 2 steroid cycles I did. I enjoyed the increased energy and faster recovery periods. High testosterone also enabled me to handle sleep deprivation better. 4 to 5 hours per night was plenty for me while I was on cycle. Not much changed for me physically because I didn't dial in everything as good as I could have. I work about 100 hours per week and I just got too little sleep for the steroids to have much of an effect. To maintain what I idealised as my physical ideal would require much more dedication and much higher levels of administration ongoing for the rest of my life, and I was unwilling to sacrifice my health, my hair, and my fertility. Your ideals and goals may be different. I can't say I regret taking them because it did allow me to learn through experience that I did not want to go further down this path. It's quite likely that if you go down this road, you will have to be on some form of hormonal therapy for the rest of your life. This is especially the case if you ever indulge in nandrolone or its derivatives. The longer you use steroids for, the more likely you will need hormone replacement therapy ongoing. My recommendation to you, if you want to become the strongest possible version of yourself, is to not depend on these performance-enhancing drugs. Instead, make sure you have exploited all the means of elevating your natural testosterone levels at your disposal. If you're going to use steroids, know your shit. Educate yourself on the compounds you are using and the risks you are taking. Get blood work before, during, and after your cycle to discover the health problems that each compound causes. Have everything optimized before you start. Know how to eat, know how to train, have your sleep hygiene of the highest standard, and sleep at suitable times. You want to make the most of your steroid use. Have your entire plan mapped out from the start, including your post-cycle therapy, before you take your first shot. Make sure you have everything you need for your whole cycle, including your post-cycle therapy and all estrogen and progesterone control drugs to swiftly control unwanted side effects before you start your cycle. You need to be ready to stop steroids mid-cycle if you get injured or experience some other unforeseeable circumstance. Thanks for watching today's episode. In episode 126, I'll talk about the performance-enhancing drugs you should be taking. Subscribe and hit the bell icon to be notified when it drops. Catch you then.